Welcome back, folks. This is part 4 of my Reworking Every Charm series. You can find links to the other parts at the top of the description. Here's a brief summary of what I'm trying to do. The goal of this series is to make every charm in Hollow Knight feel powerful and worth using while sticking as close as possible to the design intention of the original charm. Now, excitingly, even though we're covering the last charms in this video, there will be at least one more entry in this series. In the next video, I'm going over some of the mistakes I made in the first 4 episodes and implementing changes that you folks have suggested. So remember to subscribe so you don't miss that episode. With all of that said, I'm Holland, and these are the Hollow Knight charms rebalanced. Now let me set the stage for you. You found this wicked new zone, the Hive. Fighting past dozens of bees and stumbling through some tense platforming, you finally make it to the Queen's lair. It takes you a few tries, but eventually you manage to defeat the Hive Knight. Excited to discover the prize for your troubles, you move on to the next room and find Hiveblood. It's a 4-notch cost charm, which you consider a little expensive, but look at what it does. It basically gives you regeneration. What? That's so cool! You put it on at the next opportunity, curious to witness its true power, and then you realize that your whole life has been a lie. It's not rejuvenation from Warcraft, it's medkit from Risk of Rain. In other words, the charm only restores a single mask of health every time you take damage. But that's not all. As you continue to use Hiveblood, hoping to salvage some utility from this rather underwhelming charm, you realize just how long it takes to restore each of your masks. 10 seconds. And getting hit resets the timer. And using focus cancels the timer. And although using the charm alongside Joni's Blessing does work and even boasts a new graphic, it takes more than twice as long to restore each mask. Grief-stricken and irrevocably disappointed, you unequip Hiveblood and never use it again. Well, until you do Path of Pain, where it is, in all fairness, quite useful. But all in all, I think Hiveblood does need a pretty significant buff. Solution. Hiveblood now costs only 3 charm notches, down from 4, and keeps restoring masks until you reach full health. Additionally, using focus no longer interrupts this effect. And finally, Lifeblood masks from Joni's Blessing are restored at the same speed as regular masks. So basically, Hiveblood now always tries to restore your health if possible while costing only 3 notches. Powerful? Well, I'd sure hope so, because for combat, I pretty much never see it used. Hiveblood does kind of have this fundamental issue with being basically useless if you're a beginner who takes damage less than every 10 seconds, and much better if you're good enough to dodge almost every attack. But I think where Hiveblood could play a healthy role in the game is helping players who have learned to dodge most of the boss's moves, but aren't yet very comfortable getting hits in on the boss. Equipping Hiveblood could help that player experiment with finding openings in the boss's moveset to attack and then allow them to retreat and heal if they get hit. Number 2. Spore Shroom. Spore Shroom is found in the fungal wastes. After successfully using focus, the charm releases a cloud of toxic spores into the air that deals 26 damage over 4 seconds to enemies caught in its radius. I've seen a few people argue that the damage is pretty good in the early game. Still, I generally feel that using Spore Shroom takes more effort than it's worth. I have 2 proposed solutions, one more radical than the other. Solution A. Spore Shroom now deals 50 damage over 4 seconds, up from 26 damage over 4 seconds. Solution B. Spore Shroom no longer summons a cloud of toxic spores. Instead, after successfully using focus, every enemy on screen is automatically infected with spores, taking 26 damage over 4 seconds. So either we buff the damage of Spore Shroom to almost double, hoping that's enough to make it worth using, or we effectively increase its range to the entire screen, which I think would make it a lot more fun to use. Here's another consideration I had. Perhaps the charm should get a small percentage boost in damage, say 25%, when summoned at full health. That way we incentivize using focus even at full health, making the healing playstyle a lot more proactive. If I had to pick one solution to endorse, I'd probably go for solution B, allowing Spore Shroom to infect every enemy on screen. Number 3. Sharp Shadow. On the topic of having to pick a favorite, I think Sharp Shadow has got to be my favorite charm in all of Hollow Knight. The beautiful simplicity of being able to damage enemies by dashing through them is just perfect. That's why I can't help but be a little disappointed that the Sharp Shadow dash only deals 1 times nail damage, increased to 1.5 with Dashmaster. Solution: Sharp Shadow now deals 2.5 times nail damage when dashing through an enemy, increased to 3 times with Dashmaster. And to briefly comment on the increased length of the Shadow Dash, it takes some getting used to, but I think I prefer it. It definitely helps a lot when dashing through larger bosses, although I can totally understand if some people would prefer it not to increase the dash distance. Number 4. Shape of Un. Arguably the coolest of the focus-based charms, Shape of Un transforms you into a cute little slug knight and allows you to move around while using focus, although at a slightly reduced speed. If you want to go faster, however, just pop on quick focus and watch that little critter zoom across the screen. Shape of Un is not only cute, thematic, and arguably pretty decent for Pantheon runs, it also has a similar design to Sharp Shadow. By that I mean the charm is so easy to pitch. It allows you to move while healing, but there's so much depth to that statement than you might intuitively imagine. Simple but deep at the same time. For example, one cool thing you can do with Shape of Un is to go beneath some attacks, like the Mantis Lord's boomerangs. As I noted in the previous episodes, as well as in this video on healing in general, I think the focus mechanic, while very well designed, falls off in the late game. That's why when rating charms such as this one, I judge it from the perspective that healing is balanced for the late game, even though that is not my opinion. If you think focus is perfectly balanced across all stages of the game, I can see why you would argue that Shape of Un is pretty balanced too, and I would tend to agree with that. However, I think it's hard to say that the charm is top tier, so I would still argue that buffing it just a little bit is indeed appropriate given the current meta. Solution: Shape of Un now costs only 1 charm notch, down from 2. Number 5. Nailmaster's Glory. Reducing the charge time of your nail arts by 44% for only 1 notch, from 1.35 seconds down to 0.75 seconds, Nailmaster's Glory makes nail arts feel great to use. It's yet another simple charm that encourages you to play in a totally unique manner, and I love that. If you think that Nailmaster's Glory is too weak, I would look at buffing nail arts, not the charm itself. And although professional players get much out of them, I tend to be of the opinion that nail arts could deal just a little bit more damage to compete with other options. In any case, if you want to buff Nailmaster's Glory, buff nail arts themselves. The charm in itself feels very appropriately balanced. I propose no changes. Number 6. Weaversong. Another charm for an archetype everyone wants, but no one can justify running. Weaversong summons 3 Weaverling companions that cannot be defeated and which each deal 3 damage per hit. I don't know how fast they attack, since the wiki doesn't seem to state that anywhere. Suffice it to say, they don't deal a lot of damage. Combined with Grimmchild, Weaverlings will now also collect 3 soul per hit, which I've heard is pretty useful. Combined with Sprintmaster, the Weaverlings now move 50% faster, which I've heard is pretty useless. I like Weaversong. It might be my favorite of the summoner charms, just the simple design of the charm itself, the cute little Weaverlings, and the fact that it ties into the lore of the mysterious Weavers. I just wish, as with all summoning charms, it were a little stronger. Solution: Weaverlings now deal damage equal to the base damage of your nail divided by 3. This means they'll only deal around 2 damage each with the old nail, but a way more respectable 7 damage once you get the pure nail. More damage is actually all I think this charm really needs to be viable, but I'm curious to hear if you agree with that or not. Number 7. Dream Wielder. How about that? Another pretty decent 1-notch cost charm. Dream Wielder reduces the charge time of your Dream Nail from 1.75 seconds down to 1.1 seconds, as well as doubling the amount of soul gained from each Dream Nail strike, from 33 to 66. That's pretty huge. Apparently, the charm also allows you to gather essence from killing enemies at a 50% higher rate. There you go, I guess. Solution: Dream Wielder now decreases the time it takes for you to attack with the Dream Nail to 1 second, down from 1.1 seconds, for simplicity's sake. Additionally, you can now move around while charging the Dream Nail. Cool, huh? I'm sure that's gonna make the Dream Nail a lot more fun to use, and a lot stronger as well. Credit to the fellow who came up with that idea is in the description below. Number 8. Dreamshield. Ever wanted to cosplay as your least favorite ghost warrior Markoth? Well, I sure hope not, because this charm completely rips you off. It summons a single shield that orbits around you, blocking one projectile or dealing 1 times nail damage if it touches an enemy, whereafter it will disable itself for a short time. The shield cannot block all types of projectiles, and you have no way of controlling where it goes, so trying to block a specific attack is laughably hopeless. I do give the charm props for referencing Markoth by spinning faster while you're using focus, but damn if it isn't a hot piece of garbage. Sorry Dreamshield users, you're entitled to using this charm, just know that all you're signaling is, I didn't need those 3 charm notches anyway. Solution: Dreamshield now costs only 2 charm notches, down from 3. Additionally, the charm now summons 2 orbiting shields that cannot become deactivated and which each deal 2 times nail damage instead of 1 times nail damage. From Dreamshield to Dreamshields. Now we can finally roleplay as Markoth. Number 9. Grimmchild. Way back in episode 1 of this series, I showed you this graphic, depicting what I think to be the best 3 charms in the game, and of course, everyone agreed with my assertions. So let's talk about the elephant in the room, the best charm in the game. Grimmchild gives you an airborne companion that follows you around, which by itself already makes it the best charm in the game. Like, sure, Glowing Womb gives you flying minions too, but they just off themselves as soon as physically possible. Grimmchild, he's here for the long run. But what makes Grimmchild undeniably the best charm isn't just the fact that he's super cute, but also that he pretends to help you while actually letting you do all the work yourself. See, Grimmchild knows that you can handle yourself just fine and doesn't patronize you by dealing any damage. Rumors have it the projectile actually does deal damage, but this has yet to be proven since Grimmchild has never hit a shot. Intentionally, of course, as not to patronize you. The wiki takes a completely uneducated guess and assumes that Grimmchild deals 11 damage at max level. Okay, well, I guess we'll go with that. And while it seems the wiki didn't want to assume the length between each attack, I'll tell you right now, he's not in a hurry to get his shots out. Grimmchild is absolutely the best charm in the game, but I think that's deserved. He tells you where enemies are without messing with your damage output. And while I know what you're saying, Holland, please nerf him, we want a Grimmchild free meta, I don't care. I love Grimmchild and I'm gonna buff him even further. Solution: Grimmchild now deals 21 damage when fully developed, fires at twice the current rate, and has an almost guaranteed chance to hit. Now, you might be wondering why I gave Grimmchild an increased chance to hit when I just praised him for his inaccuracy. Right. Number 10. Carefree Melody. I'm sure a few of you have been waiting for this one. In the first episode of this series, I made Stalwart Shell grant the player a damage protecting shield every 30 seconds. Although I'm still very happy with that change, commenters have astutely pointed out that this effect is quite similar to the current effect of Carefree Melody. Carefree Melody is a defensive charm built entirely around luck. Every time you take damage, the charm gives you a 10% chance to block the next hit. If the next hit isn't blocked, that chance increases by another 10% up until it reaches 90% or the damage is actually blocked, at which point the chance returns to 0%. Smarter people than I have deduced that the charm on average blocks around 22% of all hits. I don't like this very much. Mainly because I'm not a huge fan of randomness, but also just because there's practically no way of interacting with this charm, except hope and pray that it blocks as much damage as possible. So because of this, as well as the fact that I made Stalwart Shell into basically just a more fun version of Carefree Melody, I've decided to rework the charm entirely. Carefree Melody's charm description reads, contains a song of protection that may defend the bearer from damage. Let's try to follow that design intention when rebalancing the charm. Here's my suggestion. Solution: Carefree Melody now costs only 2 charm notches, down from 3, and loses all previous effects. Instead, the charm now causes you to instantly perish upon taking any amount of damage. However, Carefree Melody now also shields your masks, blocking all damage you would take on your next hit and disabling the charm for 10 seconds. So in layman's terms, Carefree Melody becomes a more extreme version of Stalwart Shell. For 1 notch less, you're getting shielded 3 times faster, every 10 seconds down from 30 seconds. But if you take more than 1 hit while the shield is recharging, you're gone. Should it work against Radiant bosses? Well, as with Stalwart Shell, I'll let you decide on that for yourself, but I'd probably say no. Should Carefree Melody work alongside Stalwart Shell? Well, giving you two shields to worry about might be a bit confusing, so how about they just have a synergy that reduces the charge time of the Carefree Melody shield by a few seconds? I think this new Carefree Melody could open up a brand new style of gameplay that alternates between high offense and rigorous defense. And no matter how imbalanced the charm is now, at least I got rid of that pesky RNG. Number 11. Kingsoul. Man, Kingsoul gets so much hate. Sure, it's the most expensive charm in the game and only gives you 4 soul every 2 seconds, but come on, that's still pretty damn cool. When I first assembled Kingsoul and saw its effect, I was like, duh, why hasn't any other charm done this? This is dope. And the effect is actually quite interesting, enabling you to cast spells at sparse intervals while completely avoiding close combat. Sadly, we don't get to keep Kingsoul for long before it's turned into Voidheart. A real shame because I always thought the idea was great, so here's what I would do to fix Kingsoul. Solution. Kingsoul now costs only 4 charm notches, down from 5, remaining the most expensive charm in the game, and regenerates 4 soul every second, down from 4 soul every 2 seconds. Additionally, once you replace Kingsoul with Voidheart, defeating the Radiance changes Voidheart into Void Soul, a 4-notch cost charm with the combined effects of Kingsoul and Voidheart. Whoops, looks like I accidentally made a new charm in the rebalancing series, but I hope you can forgive me. Now, if you actually want to see me come up with brand new charms, be sure to check out my new custom charm series, Charm Forging. Link in the description. Clever, huh? Anyway, back to Void Soul. I originally thought about placing it at the end of the Path of Pain, but I think it makes more sense as a reward for defeating the Radiance. That assures you already have Voidheart and makes the Kingsoul effect way more accessible to casual players. Number 12. Voidheart. Voidheart is Voidheart. We're all good here. And there we go, all 42 charms in Hollow Knight rebalanced. But before you leave, I want to remind you that this series isn't quite done yet. So if you would be so kind, remember to subscribe. You don't want to miss the grand finale where I go through every stupid mistake I've made in this series and, putting all of the feedback I've been getting from you people to good use, try to amend some of them. But for now, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. Have a wonderful day. Bye!